Good morning, Coldwell Banker George Realty. We're really excited to have Bob Pace here today to go over the balcony laws, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about himself and his company. So this is a treat that we were able to get him to speak. So go ahead, Bob. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name's Bob Pace. I'm the co-owner of a company called Deck and Balcony Inspectors, along with commercial real estate inspectors. And the whole deck and balcony area has been an area that's been, well, I'll back up. The law itself, SB 721, was not a perfectly written law. There's been some interpretations of it. So what I'm planning on doing this morning is giving you a little bit of background, a little bit of history, how it got started, and then what the current understanding is of the law itself. My background is I've been a general contractor since 1984 here in the Los Angeles area, and been doing commercial real estate inspections exclusively since 2006. And somewhere around 10,000 inspections have been done. The areas that are affected by this law is the entire state, by the way. This is not just a LA City thing. So a couple of real quick terms. What a deck is, it's a platform typically made of lumber, and it's unroofed, attached to a house or another building. These are what we are inspecting. Part of the law states that the deck or balcony is something that projects past the main wall of the building. That's where it doesn't get very clear, because sometimes the deck goes into the main wall of the building, but the deck itself is out in front and it's exposed to the weather. I think personally the simplest way to look at it is if it's a walking surface, which they're technically called EEEs, exterior elevated elements, which is anything to do with a walking surface, whether it be the railings, the flashings, the decking surface itself, that are exposed to the weather and are primarily supported by wood over 6 feet off the ground. If you have an apartment building with 3 or more units and you have a deck that's more than 6 feet off the ground, then more than likely it qualifies. There are a lot of apartment buildings that the bottom floor, which is where everybody parks, is concrete. If it is, that does not qualify. It does not need to be looked at. If it's a common walkway, stairs, that sort of thing, primarily supported by wood, yes, it does qualify, and it will need to be done. Quick history is June 16th in 2015 in Berkeley, 6 students died and 7 others were severely injured out of the total of 13 on a 5-story apartment building that I got some inside scoop on this, is that the music was loud, it was very rhythmic, and they got to wampa, 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 and it started flexing, and they thought this was great, and then it collapsed. This is what started the whole thing. The cause was dry rot. Dry rot is basically just it's a wooden disease that causes the wood to lose its structural integrity. It's typically caused by moisture. The biggest problem currently are that decks, until just recently, very recently, were enclosed in stucco, typically on the bottom. There was no way, if moisture got inside of that cavity, for it to dry out. Consequently, we started getting dry rot. If you're building a deck currently, it has to be properly vented. Every deck that I've inspected that's been properly vented has absolutely no problems. This venting is critical, but it wasn't done for over 40 years. In September 18th of 2018, a law was signed called SB 721, which you can go on to many different websites and get many different interpretations. I personally recommend that you dig a little deeper and get the actual law itself and go through it. There's a lot to it. They define an exterior elevated element that must be inspected as structures, including their supports and railings, balconies, decks, porches, blah, 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 blah. I recommend you go through it yourself, but it's essentially anything mainly supported by wood that can be walked on that's over 6 feet off the ground of an apartment building. The purpose is to determine the exterior elevated elements and their associated waterproofing elements are in generally safe condition. Have to have a inspection done that is signed by a qualifying person. There are 4 different people who qualify for apartment buildings, not condominiums. Condominiums is a whole separate area, and there's only 2 types of people that qualify to do those, and those are architects and engineers, and they need to be done every 9 years, not every 6. So the 4 that qualify for apartment buildings are general contractors, framing contractors, actually there's 5, architects, engineers, and sorry, 4. Seems like there's another one somewhere. One of the things that's required, and this is an area that has been up to a lot of debate, is you need to be able to assess the load-bearing components and associated waterproofing elements using methods allowing for the evaluation of their performance by direct visual examination or comparable means. Unfortunately, there's a fairly large number of contractors who are doing inspections and only inspecting a total of 15% of all the decks and balconies, and then only doing a visual examination, even if it's enclosed in stucco. We've consulted with more than one engineering firm, along with architects and insurance companies also, and going, this doesn't seem right. It seems like if you have an enclosed deck with stucco and you do not have direct visual examination or comparable means, what you need to do is do something that allows you to actually see the structure that's inside. So what we are doing is twofold. One, we inspect every single deck and balcony that's there to determine which ones we feel need that bit more intrusive. And what we do is we drill a 1/2 inch hole. We stick a bore scope up inside so that we can physically see the structure. One of the reasons that I've become that only doing visual is problem is I cannot tell you how many inspections we've done, and we're into I think the low thousands of different locations that we've inspected. I can't tell you how many. I've looked at the whole building. Let's say there's 10 units. They all look fine. It looks good. And so we randomly pick a couple and we bore a hole up in there, and all of a sudden there's a problem that's inside. There's fungus growing. There's mushrooms growing. Just had one a couple days ago that had a bee's nest inside. Everything looked great. How did it get in there? I don't know, but it's there. And these are problems that the only way to see is to do those random tests and actually look up inside. Berkeley, to me, has one of the best programs. I'm going to back up a little bit and then I'll talk about Berkeley. Every individual municipality that has its own building department can actually create more stringent requirements than the statewide SB 721 states. And by the way, everything's supposed to be done by the end of this year. And I found out that just LA City alone has over 500,000 different locations that qualify. So, excuse me, 50,000, not 500. Yeah, this is going to get crazy busy. The does anybody have any questions at this point? Have I gone past anything, or anybody want to ask anything?
Can I ask you, if we're selling a home with a balcony or like the terrace right there, who pays for that inspection, the buyer or the seller?
I'm going to back up just a second. You said a home. This has to be an apartment building, not
Okay,
homes. This bill only qualifies for apartment buildings with 3 or more units.
okay. Who pays
But
for that though?
good question. The owner of the building, so the excuse me, a buyer could pay for it. However, the owner of the building would have to sign a waiver, because if we're drilling a hole into a structure, the owner of that building is the one who's going to have to actually give us the okay to do that. We've done that on a number of occasions, but typically whoever wants the inspection done is the one who pays for it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Other questions? I could talk more, but a lot of topics have been brought up here.
Can I ask you, Bob, just backing up to HOAs like the
Sure.
condominiums would, because we sell a lot of those. That's
Right.
up to the HOA to engage with an inspector. Is that
As
correct?
I understand, well, this is again where it can get a little bit messy, honestly. And so you'd have to consult with the HOA and see what their status is on it. But my understanding is that each HOA is responsible for areas exposed to the weather. However, the gray area becomes as if it's your condominium and you have an individual deck and it's just yours. Are you responsible, or are they? Typically, anything outside the exterior wall of the building is the HOA's responsibility for maintenance. But that's just a typical, each one has their own CC&Rs on that. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions at the moment? Nobody? Okay. So I was just starting to bring up Berkeley. Berkeley, where this happened, was incredibly proactive with this. And they have a whole program up there that's extremely well written and well outlined, and it's definitely more restrictive than LA City. If you want to understand what LA City code is, they have, I don't know if the camera is still working here, but LA City has this, and you can go on, and it's the E3-apartments-LAHD, and it talks about the exterior elevated elements inspection law, apartment buildings, and it explains it really well, I feel. And it talks about different levels of inspection and that sort of thing, and the purpose. Oh, that's right. It's a licensed architect, a licensed civil or structural engineer, a building contractor holding any of the A, B, or C5 licenses, and an individual certified as a building inspector. That's right. The building inspector for a city can do it, but they can't do it for the city where they are. Again, any questions anybody has? I can kind of go through.
I
Sorry, go
have
ahead.
a question. Typically, I know it would depend on the balconies. Is there a typical cost per balcony that this would run a seller if they were the
Oh,
one?
yeah, very good question. Typically, ours start at $14.50. That includes up to 10 different individual decks. balconies, exterior elevated elements that need to be looked at, stairwells, that sort of thing. If it goes over that, it's $50 for each additional visual examination. And that also covers up to 2 intrusive boring uh, areas where we look up inside with the camera. That includes the report, and that also includes a certificate, which again, this is something that I wish the state had gotten better at. Because technically you can use your report as your certificate, which you, by the way, have to keep for 12 years. The owner of the building has to keep any inspections that are done for 12 years. And it has to be redone every 6 years. So seems like I had a point. Oh yeah, as far as Berkeley goes, they became much more proactive. It's extremely well written. And which I appreciate, is there more and more companies that are starting to adopt their methods of doing it, their terminology. And one of the things that Berkeley has is they have a certificate that's within their what they give out. They want it filled out in a certain way. I've modified it to be acceptable for LA City, and that's another thing that we do. The that's kind of a very quick overview of what we do, what is being done. Let's see. Oh, there's a whole kind of, yeah, that's right. There is one more thing. There's a whole timeline that is given out. If there's no particular how it's written currently, all the inspections have to be done by the end of this year and every 6 years thereafter. Inspector is supposed to produce a report within 45 days of the inspection. We try to do it within 7. Everybody needs the information quicker than that. If we recommend immediate repairs because there's a real problem, which rarely happens, but it does happen, we also, just so it's understood, there I did have a agent that had some disagreement with me because it was his personal place. We have to notify the local enforcement agency, which is basically the local Department of Building and Safety. We have to do that within 15 days. If there's a real emergency, we have to cordon it off, put up caution tape, and tell the people that they're not supposed to access it. And one of the things that is not fully known is they talk about, there's possible fines, and it's $100, a minimum of $100 a day, up to $500 a day for non-compliance. Now, LA City, actually virtually any building permit, does not have the personnel to enforce this. They really don't. But what they do have the ability to do is when it sells and the computer punches in and finds out that you should have done it 6 months ago and didn't do it, you've got a minimum of $100 a day potential fine coming up. So getting this done earlier is a lot better. I think I did mention, yeah, each governing body of any city or county may enact ordinances or laws imposing requirements greater than those in SB 721. Any other particular
Yes, they want,
questions?
what counties will you cover, Bob, your company?
Oh, good question.
Uh-huh.
Well, I've done everything from San Diego to San Francisco. And being a mercenary at heart, I'm willing to go where the work is.
Okay. And you can be reached at 818-957-4654, Bob?
That is correct.
Okay, I
That is
just put that in the chat because somebody was asking.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
Okay. Any other questions while we have somebody that knows balcony inspections? So Bob, I have a question. When, there's home inspection companies that, do the inspections. So if they're the inspector is not a licensed contractor, can they do that? Or is it because they're under the umbrella of a contractor, they can do those inspections on the balcony?
If he's a certified inspector,
Certified,
the-
okay,
certified inspector, and what typically qualifies as certified inspector, one is a CREA inspector, California Real Estate Inspection Association, which I'm also a member, and did about 10,000 home inspections before I branched into the commercial. And then there's also a couple of other organizations which are just fine. There's ASHI, there's InterNACHI, there's some different
Mhm.
certified organizations. I'm personally a fan of the California Real Estate Inspection Association more than the others, only because it specifically deals with California. And there's a few nuances that California has that, you know, some of the international or national inspection associations do not.
So if they need a balcony inspection, they can contact you, and I like the way you said the report may be issued. You'll do your best to issue it faster than 45 days, because if they're in escrow, you know, that messes with our contingencies, so that's nice to hear.
Yeah, we've had a few that we've had to do in even faster time, just because all of a sudden it's, you know, that sort of routine.
Yeah.
The for some reason I'm thinking there was something I was going to say, but I've forgotten what it was.
Okay.
And if anybody has any questions, feel free, you may email me. My email address is bob@CREILLC.com.
Okay, I'm gonna type that, Bob at CR.
EILLC.com.
Okay. Okay, that, folks, that'll be in the chat. Bob's phone number is in the chat, and his email if you need some further information. So, thank you,
I
Bob.
hope that was helpful.
Oh, yeah, it
And
was very helpful. Thank you.
yeah, by the way, we're really busy
Yeah, I know.
with these, very busy. And but I want to thank you for asking me to speak.
No, thank you, Bob. This was something that's been on our mind, and we were trying to figure it out ourselves. So thank you for helping us navigate it. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you very much, Bob. Nice to meet you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.